Hey everybody, my name is Cory, and welcome back to Talking Cardboard, or more specifically, episode number 6 of our Let's Talk Cardboard video segment. We have a lot to get through today, everything from a reminder of what this segment is all about, a call to action, and today's discussion topic. Let's get started. Within each episode of Let's Talk Cardboard, we look at all of the comments thoroughly and go through each one with any questions you may have about the board gaming hobby, and we feature your question on the following segment the next week. So if you have any questions or any comments to make about the board game hobby in general, or any games in general, or any questions you may have that you'd like us to discuss in a future episode, leave them in the comments section below, and we will be sure to feature those questions in a future episode. And as always, if you like the content you see here on the channel, consider subscribing and liking the video. We really do appreciate it. So, and now what do we have for episode 6? Well, all the previous questions and comments from the other episodes we have already answered in each video segment. We have nothing new to really provide for episode 6, so I just made up a topic of discussion for today's episode, and that is, at this point in our board gaming career, or more specifically, at this point in your board gaming career, what does the hobby mean to you now versus what the hobby meant to you when you first started in the hobby? So that is a question that I think about often. What does this mean to me? Or what does it mean to others? Or how should I treat others who are new to the hobby or who have been in the hobby for a long period of time? So starting with a bullet point here from when I first started in the hobby, I've got here, I felt like an outsider looking in on a large ocean of expert hobbyists. And I really do think that a lot of newcomers to the hobby feel the same way. There are tens of thousands of new board games every year that come out. There's a wide ocean and a vast array of different games you can get into. Some new hobbyists don't know about BoardGameGeek.com, for example, the largest database in the world that has all board games in existence under one database. I certainly didn't know about BoardGameGeek.com when I first started, and I think just the wide, vast array of different games, game types, game mechanisms to learn is definitely a barrier to entry. Not only that, but being an outsider looking in on the hobby also means that you feel like an outsider to the people who have been in the hobby for a longer period of time, and I definitely felt that. Back when I first started digging deeper into the hobby back in 2009, 2010, the hobby wasn't nearly as big as it is now, and I still felt like an outsider watching these YouTube videos and written reviews and reading things online and just seeing how many of these quote-unquote experts in the hobby were already so many light years ahead of me that I knew nothing about the hobby at all, and there was just so many people who just, appeared to have so much knowledge that I would never be able to catch up to learning all the knowledge they had about the hobby. But now fast forwarding to now, the present day in the hobby, I do feel more involved in the community. It's taken about 15 years now. We just started the channel about 5-6 years ago, but it took about that long, a good 10 years to feel like I was a part of the community. And I think a lot has to do with who you are as a person, whether or not you're more introverted or extroverted, how much you set yourself out there to be present at different conventions or to chat different groups or discords or anything like that. It definitely weighs in on how much involvement you will have in the community by how much effort you put into it, but also just naturally, as you just become more involved in this hobby, you'll just naturally become more involved in the community as well. And now at this point, after about 15 years, I feel like I've got a duty to inform others of the knowledge I've learned over the last 15 years. And that is another reason why I started the channel here to begin with, was I just felt like there was just so much information that I have grown to learn over the years that I can share and provide with other people watching these YouTube videos. And it's just a quick snapshot at different amounts of information here and there, depending on which videos or which game reviews you're watching, that people can access in a hurry that I didn't necessarily have access to back when I first started. So another thing, back when I first started in the hobby, I felt super picky about my game selection, the games that I was buying. I was super picky, and I got excited about playing the game as soon as I acquired it. I remember, back in the day, it's so much buildup, and you're just so picky. You don't know what you're gonna like, what you're not gonna like, and you're trying to take in as much content or as much written reviews or YouTube video reviews as much as possible to try to get a gauge on if you think you might like that type of game, which you don't really know, you don't really have a basis to work off of, but you're just trying to guess the best you can. And then when you're spending all that money on a game, 40, 50, 60 or more dollars on a game, you're just excited to get that thing to the table to see if you actually do enjoy the game. And I just remember that feeling of joy and excitement every time I bought a new game. And now fast forwarding to today, I'm still picky, but I know what I like for the most part. There's still games that I swing and miss, or games that I swing and it's a home run, but I've kind of gotten my batting percentage up in that respect. I know what I like for the most part. I'm still really, really picky, if not even more picky than when I first started. I'm more picky now, but I have kind of learned what I like or don't like about a game even before purchasing it, or even at like a first glance, just reading the quick synopsis on the game mechanisms, for example, or the theme of the game. And I'm excited to table the game at some point within the next 12 months after purchasing it. Not necessarily that night or that very next morning, like Christmas morning, wanting to get that game to the table and get it played and see what it's all about. I do miss that level of joy and excitement that I had when I first entered the hobby, which I don't necessarily have anymore because I've played hundreds and hundreds of games. I've got, 250 games in my collection here behind me, and that level of joy and excitement isn't necessarily about getting the game played immediately as it was before. Now it's just exciting to fill a spot, which we'll get into later on those here, but fill a spot in my collection that it may be missing, or a void may be missing, or the new hotness. You get excited about that, but it's definitely changed and evolved to be something different nowadays. Where as long as I get it to the table within 12 months, 6 to 12 months, I'm completely satisfied. So that's definitely changed on that front. Another topic, when I first started, I had the mindset that I'd never cull any game out of my collection. And now that's drastically changed. Back when I first started in the hobby, you're spending all this money on the game. You want to keep it in your collection. It almost feels just like a piece of like a collector's art, or something that you're going to keep in your collection forever. And it's going to stay up there on the shelf and just be that work of art. And all that time and research spent into that, making that decision and spending that kind of money on the game, why would it ever leave your collection? It's going to stay on the shelf right there forever, and it's just going to be that sort of nostalgia and that sort of moment in time for you for the remainder of all time. And that's definitely changed quite a bit. I am perfectly okay culling games now to make room for new games. I do it all the time. I would say, generally speaking, I try to pick games where I'm keeping them about maybe 25-30% of the time. I'm fully well aware that out of every 10 games I buy, I may only keep about 3 of them for more than 2 years. And that's just kind of the way the hobby has evolved and been more ingrained in me now, is that I like to get new games played and discover new games and new mechanisms and new themes and new ways of playing a game and seeing how groups of people interact with that new game. I get more enjoyment out of that now than I ever have before, and I'm completely okay culling the game if we don't get it played, very often in a 2-year time span to get something new and exciting. But I would say, yeah, maybe 3 or 4 games out of every 10 I buy, I keep in my collection for more than 2 years. So that's just kind of where I'm at this point in the hobby. Another thing, kind of going off an earlier point, when I first started in the hobby, I bought games that I thought would appeal to me and my wife, and that's it. I didn't really have a gaming group. I didn't have a lot of friends that were into board games. I didn't have really any family that was into playing board games. So my main thing was, would my wife and I enjoy this game? Well, I'm probably going to purchase it. And now, as you can imagine, that's changed quite a bit, fast forwarding to today, where I buy games that will fill a void or I think my group would enjoy. Now that I've got 2 kids, my wife and I are a lot busier. There's not a lot of time to play games together. My wife and I, back in the day, went from playing maybe 4 or 5 game nights a week together, playing board games, and now that's been reduced to maybe 1 or 2 times a year. So now I'm definitely buying games to either fill a void in my collection, or I'm thinking I'm filling a void in my collection, or buying a game that I think my game group would enjoy. because that's who I spend most of my time playing games with, is the Talking Cardboard group and other groups of people. I like to purchase games that I think the group would enjoy or a group would enjoy because I get enjoyment out of seeing others have fun. So that's where I'm kind of at in my board game career at this moment. The last point for today's video I wanted to touch on, when I first got started, I would basically just automatically buy an expansion that came out for a game I loved, and I would avoid deluxe games at all costs. You know, deluxe expansions, deluxe games, deluxe base games with deluxe components. I would stay clear of the deluxeified versions of games. I thought it was a waste of money, a waste of time. On the flip side of that, if I saw just a regular expansion to a base game come out of a base game that I loved and that I thought I was gonna keep in my collection forever, it was just an automatic buy. Why not buy an expansion to a game you already know you enjoy and you love to play? It would only make it better, right? Well, that's the way I thought when I first got into the hobby. Just buy that expansion for the game you love, and it's just gonna make it that much better. And then also stay clear of deluxeified versions of games. Now at this point in the hobby, I'm very hesitant to buy most expansions. Even for games that I love, I'm very hesitant. I would say 2 to 3 times more, spending more time researching expansions to games, whether or not the game is just okay for me, or it's good or great or excellent or one of my favorite games of all time. I still spend probably 2 to 3 times more time taking time to research those expansions before buying them. I'm just not much of an expansion person anymore. I do have, expansions, obviously, as anybody would, but I definitely spend a lot more time researching those than I would a base game. And then deluxe versions of games or deluxeifying a game, I'm definitely more open to that sort of thing now. It's been about 10, 15 years that has finally opened me up to, sometimes having deluxeified components or a deluxe version of a game does make the gaming experience more enjoyable. I have come to appreciate that a beautiful board and upgraded components and nice hefty, if the components have some weight to it, and the table presence is just gorgeous. Other than some of the deluxeified versions are a little bit more difficult to get out of the box and onto the table, so that's a whole separate topic of discussion. Other than that, when you get it to the table and get it all set up, it seems to bring more enjoyment. It holds your attention for a longer period of time. And I've noticed that bringing a more deluxeified, gorgeous game to the table with my gaming groups, they seem to gravitate toward that and have a more enjoyable experience overall throughout the length of gameplay for that day. So I'm definitely more open to it now, and definitely a lot more picky with game expansions. That does it for today's video. Like I said in the intro of the video, if you like the content we do here on the channel, consider subscribing and liking this video here. It helps us out a lot, helps out the algorithm, and helps to keep us going. And as I said in the intro of this video, if you have any topics of discussion for us to discuss during the Let's Talk Cardboard video segment, leave those in the comments. We really, really do appreciate that, and that keeps this segment moving forward and gives us some content to use and to bring new episodes to you each week. So that was one of the reasons why there was such a hiatus between episode 5 and today's episode 6, was we just didn't really have any comments or content to work with today's video, so I just made up today's video topic just for the sake of making it up, but also reinvigorating this segment and asking a call to action for all you to leave some comments below. So with that being said, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.